Where do I start? What do I do next? We may ask ourselves these questions over and over and over again before we transition and in the early days of our gender transition. So today I want to share the first handful of steps I took in my transition journey all in one video in the hopes that it might help some of you on your journeys. I'll be covering about 12 main steps that I took in the first about 7 or 8 months of my transition. Before I jump in, know that this list is in the order that I happened to do things. What you do may and probably will look at least slightly different. And this is not me telling you this is what you're supposed to do, how you should do it. Remember to do things in a way that makes sense to you. This is just meant to provide a guide that you may be able to pull some things from. So the first step, which is probably obvious, it's more like a step 0 preliminary starter step, was coming out to myself, something I've talked about a lot. But of course, I had to acknowledge and begin to at least somewhat accept myself and accept that I'm trans and accept that I'm a woman to even be able to start this journey. Right around the same time, second thing was I came out to my girlfriend. First person I came out to other than myself, I guess. This honestly happened right around the same time as step 1, and it's really hard to differentiate the two because I was at a point where I realized I really needed to transition, my life needed to change, and then I told my girlfriend, largely because she had been supportive in the past when I told her that I was a crossdresser, even though obviously that wasn't exactly the truth, but it was easier for me to say it that way at the time. So at this point in time, I was starting my journey. So I actually did a lot of online research to try to figure out what I might do next. Just like, hello Google, I am trans. What do I do? Where do I start? And I decided on therapy after many resources said that therapy would not only be helpful, but would also likely be necessary if I ever wanted to do anything medical like hormones or surgeries down the line because of letter requirements. I didn't know at this point what my medical transition would look like at all, but I know I wanted to start that process moving towards those letters because I wanted to at least have the possibility of pursuing medical transition steps. The fourth piece was starting clothes and makeup shopping. You know, that whole totally not at all stressful process of shopping for an entirely new wardrobe and navigating shopping in the women's section for the first time, and also trying to figure out what the hell makeup to use, what shade to use, how to apply it, how to make it look okay, all of that stuff. But don't worry, it did get easier over time. And then I came out to a few close friends, started to gradually build that support network. And with this support network, I was able to shortly thereafter go out in public for the very first time, and really go out in public a lot after that first time. And then came the hair removal. Ah, what fond memories. I've mentioned in the past how I prioritized this early in transition because of how long and expensive the process of hair removal can be. I probably did hair removal for at least 3 years before I got to a point where I'm like, I'm good enough. And that consisted of a combination of both laser and electrolysis. If you can afford it and you do want to get rid of facial hair or other body hair, I would say start this process as soon as you can, because it does take a long time. You know, this whole process of transition I started in fall of 2014, and then it was at the start of 2015 that I found out about a trans student group on campus back where I used to live. And I figured it would be great to finally meet other people in the community, and I'm so glad I decided to join that group and attend it regularly for I think about 1.5 years, actually. It was one of the first times that I finally felt like I was not alone in being who I am, and that it was also okay to be trans. During this time, I also started going to a new doctor, who my therapist referred me to actually, to begin talking about hormone therapy. I got the initial blood tests, and then I put starting hormones on pause for a few months because I knew that HRT could make me sterile at some point in the relatively near future. So, I talked to my doctor about this and he gave me a referral to a fertility preservation clinic where I did a few rounds of sperm banking. I'm still not sure at this point if I want to have my own kids in the future, but I figured I'd rather give myself the opportunity to do it and not use my sperm rather than not go through with sperm banking, be sterile, and then regret that later on. After my third and final session of sperm banking, that's when I started hormone therapy. This was in April of 2015. Started with oral estradiol and then good old spironolactone to block that testosterone. I was going to continue waiting to start HRT for a while, but once I finished sperm banking, I kind of was just like, what am I waiting for? And just decided to go for it. The last step that I will mention today is coming out to family. Something I've talked about a lot, something I've talked about a lot recently. As I mentioned in the past, I came out to my brother and his wife in February 2015, and then I came out to my parents in April of 2015. I could add a lot more steps here to this video, but I did want to keep this relatively concise. And note that I did go through all of this pretty quickly. All these steps only took me about 7 or 8 months in the grand scheme of things, which may sound fast and probably is pretty fast. So be sure to go at whatever pace feels comfortable and manageable for you. And I share these steps again not to tell you that this is what you should do. This is what your transition should look like. Absolutely not. Everybody's transition looks different. This is just me sharing my story very briefly to give you an example of what a transition path might look like. Take what makes sense from here and use it. Change the order, add steps, whatever you need and want for your own journey. Make sure you do that. And like I said, this was a very brief overview, so please comment below if you want me to do a deeper dive on any of these steps, any of these topics in future videos. And on that same note, what are your thoughts on my early transition steps? How does this compare to the steps that you have taken or the steps that you may be planning to take in your transition? And how did you figure out what steps that you wanted to take? And how did you figure out the order that you would take them in? Let me know all of this and more down in the comments below. And as always, Little Miss Tipsy and I love you all and hope that you're staying safe and sound. If you have not done so already, please be sure to give this a huge thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. I love you all. Bye for now.